Have you ever wondered why some people simply disappear from your life, sometimes unexpectedly and painfully? It seems unfair, doesn't it? Especially when those people held a special place in your heart. But what if I told you this is all part of a bigger plan? A plan that might seem incomprehensible at first but gradually reveals a divine purpose? God, in His infinite wisdom, never removes anyone from your life without a reason. It may sound counterintuitive, but what feels like a loss now may actually be a blessing in disguise. And it's not just about losses, it's about protection, growth, and spiritual evolution. What many don't realize is that God works in ways that, at first, seem painful but are incredibly rewarding in the end. Have you ever considered that some of these people were holding you back from reaching your true purpose? God knows exactly who and what should remain by your side and who needs to leave for you to evolve. And that's one of the most powerful lessons you can learn on your faith journey. Today, we'll explore why God removes people from your life and how it's all connected to His plan for protection, growth, and fulfilling His promises. If you've gone through this, get ready, because the answer might be deeper than you think. When God removes someone from your life, it often feels confusing or even painful. But in reality, He's making room for something far greater. You know that door that seems to close right in your face? It's likely closing so that another, much more promising door can open. It's God's way of showing you that His plan is bigger than we can see at the moment. After all, who hasn't wondered, why is this happening to me? Only to realize later that it was the best thing that could have happened. A practical example is when someone loses a job, and in the heat of the moment, it feels like the end of the world. But weeks later, a golden opportunity arises, much better than the previous one. This is how God works. He takes something away to bring what truly needs to be in your path. Have you ever thought what would have happened if you'd stayed in that previous situation? Often, comfort prevents us from reaching our true purpose. This process, while sometimes painful, is an important lesson in trust. If you always knew what would happen, where would faith be? It's precisely in uncertainty that God does His best work. He removes to guide, to shape. It might be a friendship that seemed perfect, but later on, you realize it was more of a block than a support. Trust the process. Another important point is that what you think you need isn't always what God has prepared for you. It can be difficult to accept, but you need to remember that God's purpose is always greater. He removes people, situations, and opportunities to align you with the true path, the one only He can see clearly. It's like a work of art that only makes sense when viewed from above. Finally, it's essential to understand that God's purpose involves growth. And growth comes with change. And change, often, hurts. If someone is leaving your life, it might be because God has something or someone better reserved for you. It's all part of the greater plan, and even if you don't understand it now, trust that He's preparing something much better than you can imagine. God's timing is perfect, but sometimes it's hard to understand when we're in the middle of a storm. People naturally tend to want to control everything and have immediate answers, but God's timing is different. He knows exactly the right moment for each thing. When someone leaves your life or a situation doesn't go as planned, it's easy to think things are out of control. But what looks like chaos to us might be the beginning of something wonderful in God's eyes. Think about that time when you wanted something so badly, but it just didn't happen. Years later, looking back, you realize it was a blessing in disguise. God was preparing you for something bigger and better. The pain you felt during the process was part of the plan, like a sculptor chipping away to create a masterpiece. And that masterpiece, of course, is your life's purpose. Trusting in God's timing also means accepting that it won't always be easy. The waiting can be agonizing, especially when we can't see what's coming. But true faith is trusting that, even when you don't know the next step, God already knows the entire path. He sees what we don't. When you're in the middle of confusion, remember, this too shall pass. Everything has its time and purpose. A practical example is when a door closes, and you feel desperate because you can't see another one opening. But the truth is, sometimes the door God wants you to walk through is still being built. The key is to stay calm and keep the faith. Just like a farmer doesn't plant today and harvest tomorrow, God's fruits take patience and trust. And when the right time comes, you'll understand that it was all part of the process. So, if something hasn't happened yet, trust. God is never late. He knows exactly when to move the pieces so everything fits perfectly. It's like a puzzle that looks messy at first, But in the end, each piece falls into place. Your task is to trust and keep moving forward, knowing that God's timing is always the best. People come and go from our lives with a defined purpose. Some come to teach valuable lessons, while others are just passing through, leaving their mark subtly. It's important to understand that not everyone is meant to stay forever, and that's not a bad thing. In fact, each person brings a lesson, an experience, or even a push in the right direction. It's as if every interaction is a blank page, ready to be filled with the necessary learning. Often, the people who challenge us the most are the ones who teach us the most. It could be a demanding boss, a friend who disappears, or even someone who hurts you deeply. Instead of closing off in resentment, try asking yourself, what can I learn from this? It's in pain and difficulties that we find the greatest opportunities for growth. Just as gold needs to pass through fire to be refined, we also need to go through challenging experiences to become stronger. A classic example is that relationship that seemed perfect at the beginning, but over time, wore out. The end may seem like a failure, but it's actually an opportunity to learn more about yourself. Maybe you discover that you need more independence or that you weren't being true to yourself. Every person who passes through your life leaves a trail of teachings, and the key is to be open to absorbing what each has to offer without clinging to the past. Some people are like temporary teachers. They come into your life, fulfill their role, and when the lesson is learned, they move on. It doesn't mean the relationship was a mistake or a waste of time, but rather that its cycle has completed. And that's part of the beauty of human relationships, understanding that each person has a designated time to be in our lives. Accepting this frees us to fully enjoy every moment. Want to dive deeper into biblical themes like this? Check out our exclusive ebook in the comments. It offers detailed analysis and spiritual reflections that complement this video. Don't miss out. Download your copy now. Therefore, always stay attentive to what you can learn from others. Sometimes the lessons are subtle, other times they're an emotional earthquake. But in any case, they shape you into a better version of yourself. And so, life goes on, bringing new people, new teachings, and new opportunities for growth. And who knows, the next person to cross your path may be exactly what you need. Not everyone needs to know about your visions and dreams. Often, when you share your ideas with people who don't understand or don't share the same faith, you open the door to interference. You know that old saying, silence is golden? Well, sometimes that might be your best strategy. Some visions need to be kept secret until they are mature enough to be revealed. Sharing something prematurely can invite discouragement, envy, or even negative words that can shake your faith. Think of Joseph, the biblical dreamer. When he shared his dreams with his brothers, it stirred up envy and eventually led him through a series of painful events, though ultimately fulfilling God's purpose. This teaches us a valuable lesson. Not everyone around you is ready to hear your plans. Sometimes, it's necessary to keep those visions between you and God until He shows you the right time to reveal them. Keeping your visions to yourself doesn't mean you should live isolated or distrusting everyone, but you must have the wisdom to know with whom to share. A practical example is that brilliant business idea you have. Instead of telling just anyone who asks, choose carefully who can genuinely support you, like a mentor or someone who has walked that path before. This way, you protect your idea from external interference that might dampen your enthusiasm before you even start. Another important point is that by keeping your visions private, you give them time to mature. Sometimes, in the heat of the moment, we feel an urgency to tell everyone about our plans. But what many don't realize is that this urgency can be self-sabotaging. God's visions have their time and purpose, and by keeping them secret for a while, you allow them to grow in strength, clarity, and most importantly, direction. So, the next time you feel the urge to share something important, think carefully. Reflect on whether it's the right time and if the people around you really have the capacity to understand what God has placed in your heart. When the time is right, God will give you the sign, and then you can reveal what needs to be said. Until then, let your visions grow in silence. Many times, when God removes someone from your life, it can feel painful or even unfair. But the truth is that, in many cases, He's protecting you from something you can't see. Maybe that person who seemed like a great friend was leading you down a dangerous path, or that relationship that seemed perfect was actually draining your energy and preventing your growth. God sees what you don't, and that's why He intervenes, even if you don't understand it at the time. A practical example is when you distance yourself from someone who always seems to bring drama and problems. At first, it may seem difficult to break away, but over time, you notice your life starts to improve. You feel lighter, more focused, and even happier. It's like a fog has lifted, and you can finally see clearly. God works this way, removing toxic influences before they cause more harm. Additionally, it's important to remember that God's protection isn't always obvious. Sometimes, He protects you from situations that haven't even happened yet. Someone may be planning something you can't imagine, but God is already there, in the future, blocking that path so you don't fall into traps. This kind of protection is subtle but incredibly powerful. He guards you from harm, even when you don't know you're in danger. Another form of divine protection is when He pulls you away from a place or situation. Imagine you're about to embark on a project that seems incredible, but something goes wrong, and everything falls apart. In that moment, you may feel frustrated, but later, you realize it saved you from a huge financial or emotional loss. In His wisdom, God knows exactly when to intervene to save you from future problems. So, the next time someone is removed from your life, or a situation doesn't go as expected, take a deep breath and trust. It may be that God is protecting you from something you can't see right now, but that in the future will become as clear as day. He loves you enough to intervene, even if it means a moment of temporary discomfort. In the end, you'll look back and thank Him for this divine protection. Now that you understand why God removes certain people from your life, it's time to reflect on how this affects your journey. These removals, as painful as they may be, aren't punishments, but opportunities for growth and alignment with God's purpose. Are you willing to trust this process and let go of what's holding you back? Remember, each person who leaves your life might be making room for something better. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to keep learning how to align your life with God's plans.